Two friends meet up to drink some beers and talk about past times. Not yesterday, but long ago, it's scandals, wars, and crimes. From Stalin's reign to Prohibition, Tudors, Pompey, Bush, and NASA's mission, Edison's bulk, Genghis Khan's rise to victory. Forget your old teacher, it's time for Pint-Sized History.
Hi there, and welcome to the Pint-Sized History Podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Zack.
And we're back in the studio for another episode. Last time we talked about the Nazis and their time in power of Nazi Germany.
Top five histories, top two histories.
Top five histories, top two histories. What top is this history going, Zack?
What top is this history? Top 25 history. Top 25. Actually, no.
Wow.
Top 30 history. I don't know why I'm saying
Yeah,
it's so bad.
Just put it down.
Two hours on
everyone's
it.
clicking off immediately. Fuck this. I'm not watching something like this.
This is good history.
I didn't actually know what Zack was doing until earlier today. For sure, I had a few ideas about what he might do, but it was only today that I found out exactly what it is. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'll let him say exactly what he wants to tell us. So what is it?
Everyone's read the thumbnail already, but we're talking about the Mafia, or the mob, or the Cosa Nostra, or Cosa Nostra. I don't know, but we're talking about that.
Okay, so I'm immediately going to stop you. When you say the Mafia, that can imply lots of different. Now, the mob is the American Mafia.
Yeah.
So this is about the American Mafia specifically.
I put it in here, Joe. You're getting way ahead of yourself. But
whenever
I say,
when you say the Mafia, that's vague. It doesn't make sense.
When you think the Mafia, what do you think?
I think of the American Italian Mafia.
Exactly. The Mafia I'm saying.
No, that's not fair.
You're so pedantic.
No, okay, fuck off. That's actually, you've already pissed me off. That is really annoying. Firstly, that the most famous is the American Italian Mafia, but I don't instinctively think that that's what you mean, because the American Italian Mafia came from the Italian Mafia. So if you're not talking about the Italian Mafia,
which is not as famous as the American Italian Mafia.
But that doesn't make a difference. Yes, the video might be called the Mafia, but it is quite, in fact, fuck you, man. It is very important to explain at the beginning exactly what it is. No, I'm sorry. You can be talking about the Japanese mafia film, the Jewish mafia.
I am. I'm talking about the Jewish mafia.
Oh, so you are?
Yeah.
So you're not talking about the mob and the American mafia. So it is all the mafias. Thank you for... that's why I asked you at the beginning, which is why it's so exhausting that you then say, well, is it not obvious I'm talking about the American one? No, clearly you're talking about all the mafias, which is my question at the beginning. Are we talking about all the mafias? Yes. You've now said yes, and we can move on. Thank you. Don't we have a sponsor? Crate Brewery. Here we go.
I can't tell if you're actually pissed off.
I am pissed off. It's like,
you're doing
it's obviously this. Don't be pedantic. Fuck off, man.
Okay. Anyway, pedantic Joe. We're sponsored by Crate Brewery. They do lovely beers. I'm having their lager right now. If you'd like to get one yourself, go on their website, Go on their website, cratebrewery.com, and type in checkout PINTSZED15. That's pint-sized 15. Go get yourself a lovely lager.
Yes. Right. I'm fuming. I love Crate beers, but I'm fuming right now.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Go on.
Oh, sorry. I almost forgot. Oh, that's a lovely tasting beer, that is. All right, so we're talking about the Mafia. And, you know, Joe, I was going to come in doing something funny. I was going to go, woke up this morning, got some gabagoo. Then the next day, I got some gabagoo. It's, and you know, now it feels really terrible saying that at you, because you look like you're really pissed off at me, and I was trying to have a bit of fun, but it's just the theme tune, The Sopranos, and there's like a internet meme where it's like, got some gabagoo, rather than the... Fuck me. Tonight's going to be a tricky one, honestly.
I'm actually so angry.
I'm getting stressed out, man.
Go on, go on. The Mafia, go on. Let's hear it.
We're going to be talking about the Mafia.
Yes.
Also known as Cosa Nostra, and do you know what the definition of that is?
The American Mafia, or the main American Mafia.
Yeah, you're Italian. You speak Italian, so what does Cosa Nostra mean?
Our thing.
Our thing, yeah, very good.
I don't know if the Cosa Nostra is what they call everyone that is part of any mafia in America, because there will be different families in America that are all part of the mafia chain, but are rivaling families all fighting for territory and whatnot. So I don't actually know if the Cosa Nostra is for a specific part of it, or if it's to talk about the whole thing.
Well, it's a good fucking thing I'm doing 2 hours on it, isn't it? Because you'll find out at the end of it, mate. You pissed me off, and now you come out of here with some stupid fucking things. Right, okay, enough of this. Into podcast rivalry we have right now. Okay, we're talking about the Italian-American Mafia, right? God, you've really put me...
Good, I'm glad.
You really set me back.
Well, at least we've got some energy now. At least we've got some energy.
I came feeling so chilled out, and now I'm right on the back foot.
Good, you should always feel on edge when you're talking about the Mafia.
Yeah, you're right. And to be fair, I mentioned quite a few current Mafia bosses by name in this podcast. And I was thinking, like, what if I get whacked?
I don't think we're big enough to pose any threat.
Do you reckon if like the rest of history did it?
It depends what they did. I mean, if the rest of history basically just gave like a expose on how bad the American Mafia in the current day are, then yeah, I think they might be a little bit worried. But if you're just giving a history lesson about the Mafia, no, I don't think any current Mafia would particularly put you on a list.
No, I can't agree. And also, I think they want to have as least light as possible shining on their activities. They wouldn't, they wouldn't have like a little small white Jewish boy from Northwest London do a podcast about them and go, oh, he's got to get whacked. I think that just kind of goes against the secrecy of what they're going to do.
It's never going to happen unless you're literally exposing secrets that no one knows about and now it's going to become big. Then they're not going to care.
Today we're going to talk about the origins of the Mafia, what they got up to, how they made their killings of money, and how they made their killings. We'll walk through the Prohibition, we'll walk through their heydays in like the 1940s and 50s,
Fun.
and then we'll talk about how they came to meet their end after the RICO Act, which is the...
I don't actually know. I imagine was it in the 70s or the 80s where the American government started really cracking down?
Yeah, it's basically like a criminal... It lumps every mobster in together in a bit of like criminal activity. So yeah, we'll talk about that later.
So basically, it makes it much more difficult for them to perform.
Much more easy to prosecute them.
The heyday is gone, as it were.
Yeah.
But they're still about.
Apparently, yeah. Wikipedia seem to understand who they all are. They know their names, their nicknames. It's kind of crazy. There's like a full database on there of them. And I guess if you look at like relative local newspapers, you probably see like in The Sopranos, you probably see, if you're one of the mafia bosses watching the news or something, oh, there's a picture of me coming out of court or something like that. But yeah, that's what I consider it to be, because there's no hiding anymore in like the modern day. So it must be really, that's probably one of the main reasons why the mafia don't really exist into the same extent anymore. It's probably because of the fact that social media and technology has outlasted what they can do.
Yeah.
Like in one of the episodes of The Sopranos,
I suppose so.
They show them trying to set up a racket of like local Starbucks, but they're like, we can't do that. We have to go through like management to give you some money. That just can't be done. So I guess there's some of the modern difficult challenges the mafia face to do their illegal biddings. Let's kick off with something fun, shall we? Let's break the ice, because right now there feels like a bit of ice between us.
No.
Joe, what are the best mafia films of all time?
Best mafia films of all time.
And this is completely subjective. There's no right or wrong answer.
Well, the two my favourite mafia movie of all time, and one of my favourite movies of all time, is The Godfather. The Godfather and The Godfather 2. I personally prefer the first Godfather, but they're both excellent. Obviously, Goodfellas.
Goodfellas is
which is excellent, but I never enjoyed Goodfellas as much as I did The Godfather. Does Casino count as a mafia movie?
I would absolutely say that Casino is a mafia film, and it is probably my favourite mafia film.
Oh, really? Okay, because I can't really remember.
I
don't really remember much about Casino.
It's not really mafia. I guess it is mafia, but it's more.
Well, it's just
gangsters,
it's corruption, gangster, casino stuff, which I remember well at the time. But yeah, it seems a bit different.
It's got Robert De Niro in his older age playing a refined Jewish gentleman.
That's really good. After that, I actually can't.
Recently, you've got The Irishman.
The Irishman, yeah. Godfather 3.
Which apparently is terrible.
I've seen it. It's not great.
But I put here just for some, this is not necessarily mafia films, but just, I guess, films in, actually one that is The Departed. The Departed is definitely a mafia film. And Donnie Brasco, to some extent, is also a mafia film as well.
What about the British mafia with the Cray brothers? What was that?
The Cray,
Legend.
It's not really...
It's mafia. It's British mafia.
It's more ganged, isn't it, the mafia, I guess.
No, they were British mafia,
I think we don't really have mobsters here. We got like gangsters.
I mean, mate, it's so interchangeable. Like, I know what you're saying, and I probably do agree, but in general, like
mafia feels like more.
It's more
bigger,
organised,
like far larger.
Yeah, it is. But I do think, they're quite interchangeable.
Yeah, Scarface, not really mafia, but sort of like
again,
mobby,
I can see it. Yeah.
Heat, which is probably not, but that's Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, who are like the two icons of this kind of age of film.
That's not a mafia.
Yeah, it's still a great film. I say you could argue. I'm
trying to remember the plot of Heat. I just remember. In fact, no, sorry.
It's a criminal and a cop.
Yeah, and the criminal is they do like a bunch of heists and stuff. What about his
Your
mafia?
girlfriend's got a great ass, and your head's way up it.
That's actually not bad. I swear that's got absolutely nothing to do with the mafia.
That's my first time doing an Al Pacino impression.
An Al Pacino impression.
I think this was my first time doing an Al Pacino impression, but
that's all right.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
That's all right.
Oh, and American Gangster is a mafia film. It follows the life of Frank Lucas, who is a actual mobster from like I think the Bronx.
TV shows there's a few though.
Yeah, Sopranos,
Boardwalk Empire,
The Wire. Boardwalk Empire is a great show as well. I don't know if you've seen it.
It's a Wire gang. That's not mafia though.
It's definitely more like gangs.
Gangs.
They're also probably missing a lot in like the early 1930s because like there were two heydays of gangster films, and one is like 1930s, and one is the like 1970s to 90s. But like that's what I was gonna say anyways. It's very strange that in the 1930s there is this like cult phenomenon of mafia films. because they're not really very well known back then. Like,
No.
you're only really aware of the mafia's existence if you're an American citizen by the 1950s, 60s. You're aware there's like gangs and like groups of gangs and mobs. But
Unless you're involved, or you're in the heart of the city, or you're in the heart
yeah,
of
in like
industry.
Chicago or
Yeah.
like some like.
But in general, the average citizen,
Downtown New York.
the average person in America doesn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, just note Joe said so earlier, but we're going to be talking today exclusively about the Italian-American Mafia and their associated mafias as well. So, like, we'll be talking about the Jewish mob and the Irish mob too a little bit. But mostly
Tons of countries
today,
have them.
yeah, there's a really, really influential Russian mafia. Probably you know that. I guess it's like Albanian mafias
Yep.
and stuff like
Lots
that.
of Balkan mafias.
Yeah, but what we're thinking of is
Yeah, okay.
AD.
Dude, I'm glad that
Hey,
10
D.
minutes into this conversation, we finally get to the clause. So we are talking about all of them, but
Yeah.
we're primarily
We're talking
focusing
about the people that
on
say-
the American mafia.
The mafia. Let's go into the background of the mafia. They've been operating to some extent for over 164 years. Let's go all the way back to the 1860s to Sicily.
Yes.
Apparently, scholars agree the mafia emerged in the 19th century during the unification of Italy. You love Italy?
I
Muscle
do.
top on your engagement.
Thank you.
Essentially, the mafia could have gone as far back as the late Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Historians don't really know. They could have been like
It's hard to tell.
far earlier
When
than
you're
that.
trying to be secret and
Yeah.
there's not many details being kept or of anything anyway, then
Yeah.
you're not. It's hard to tell.
Supposedly their roots come from like private community armies that were set up to like in the wake of bad landowners, and they would take over their land, become the sole owners of the estate, and also they would extort money from landowners in return for protection of crops.
Yeah.
They also had a very complicated moral code, and it was called Omertà. Omertà, which I think is a Spanish word, not
Yeah,
an
that
Italian
doesn't
word.
sound very
No,
Italian. It could be.
Omertà, and it's a southern Mediterranean, basically code of silence and honor, guidelines, if you will.
Yep.
For mobsters, basically means you can't say anything to authorities or outsiders, and
Classic.
if you do, you get shunned and you get killed, stuff like that. Omertà is really important because it allows them to maintain their secrecy as a group for literally hundreds of years, and then literally 100 years in the States, because they're there from the 1860s, but we don't know about them publicly until the 1960s.
Yeah. On a grand scale, anyway.
It's kind of testament to how the mafia operate, that they are such an efficiently run organization. Like, they're not just a group of ragtag criminals and thugs. They are in like the early 1900s, like before the 1920s. But then after Prohibition, and after they set up something that's called the National the Criminal Syndicate in 1931, they are run like a flawless machine.
Proper business, yeah.
But then you have the individuals within that, because it's a criminal organization, who go out and do like extrajudicial killings and stuff like that and disobey the rules. But they are neat and tidy.
Efficient.
Yeah, which I guess is like to how they pervaded American society so well. Like, I think basically at one point in New York City, every union, or like most unions, and I guess unions are not a particularly big thing in America like they are in the UK, but you used to have like the Teamsters and construction workers and dock workers, stuff like that. The mafia had their fingers in all those pies, and that was a big part of their revenue. As I said before, like, they maintained this secrecy for 100 years or so. It's not until 1957 at the Appalachian Meeting, which is a very small town in the state of New York, where 100 mafioso. What's the difference between mafia and mafioso?
Mafioso is a person, someone that's part of the mafia. You don't call an individual person a mafia.
No.
They're a mafioso.
Right, so 100 mafioso descend on this like very quiet suburb in the middle of nowhere in New York City, in New York State. And they come in there like expensive cars and lavish suits, and the people that live there are like, what the hell is going on? It's like the same example in, like, I don't know, Barnet. Like, you just see all of a sudden like 50 Rolls Royce and like Bentleys turn up. You're like, that is what's going on
Was it
there?
to a house? Was it just to a single
Yeah,
house?
I think they were in like a villa, like a resort, basically.
Right, okay.
And they turn up there, and the police think, oh my God, something isn't right there. And they raid it, and they just find like this in basically every big boss from across the mafia world all in one room, and they're discussing like obviously very criminal stuff. They're called the Commission, and it wasn't until Joseph Valachi, who was an American mobster in the Genovese crime family, and he confirmed its existence in 1963. He was the first mobster to publicly acknowledge Cosa Nostra's existence when he testified before a US Senate committee. And
Who publicly spoke out?
Publicly spoke about it in the US Senate committee. He was asked to testify and did so. And he
died.
Yes. What do you think?
Yeah, so he sounds like he's got a death warrant.
He died in prison in 1971.
Yeah, okay. That's quite late.
So he made it 8 years.
Yeah.
But the important thing is that for the first time in 1963, you have this crazy situation, this revelation of the American public seeing this like insane criminal network that exists. They knew they had gangsters and bootleggers and racketeers who fought for like neighborhoods and controlled territory, but not this like incredibly unbelievably convoluted system of governance. Today, there are around 3,000 members in the US who are members of the mafia.
Today.
Yep, today. So they're very much so weaker than they were in the 1970s.
But, when you say there's 3,000 members of the American Mafia today, they are not all part of one family, one group, right?
Yeah.
So they're competing.
There's like 26 different criminal enterprises connected to the National Criminal Syndicate.
And they're not all working together. Some of them will be competing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Some of them will be competing. Some of them won't like the National Criminal Syndicate. Yeah. Some of them will be like...
When you say 3,000, that sounds to me like, imagine like the personal army of people that The Godfather has and, Marlon Brando has at his disposal, 3,000 people. In reality, it's much more split up.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's very diluted. And there's 5 major families, but beyond that, there's also like different offshoots. Each family might have an extra like 5 gangs that work for them, or 4 gangs that they outsource work to and stuff like that. But yeah, there are 3,000 members today. Back in its heyday, we don't know how many there were, but it's probably safe to assume in about the tens of thousands, I would say. So let's go back to Sicily. In the late 1800s, hordes of Italians facing impoverishment in Sicily in cities like Palermo, Trapani, and Messina. Messina is the setting of The White Lotus, season 2.
Oh, is that where they set it? Yeah, it is in Sicily. I didn't know which town it's in. Oh, it's White Lotus.
What a great season that is, by the way.
Yeah, it's so fun.
And it's really fascinating. I guess in the early 1800s, when the northern Italians migrated to America, it was typically like craftsmen. It was like sculptors, woodworkers, glass blowers, because in the north they're quite professional artisans.
A lot more, agricultural farmland and poorer. I wouldn't always go as far as say peasants, but in the 1800s, there's already a pretty big divide in wealth between the north and the south, and it only gets worse as time goes on. So yeah, there's a ton of Sicilians that want to leave for a better life, and America is the perfect place for it.
So initially it was northern Italians, then you're right, it becomes Sicilians towards the later end of like the 1920s, and they flock en masse. And I think by 1920, more than 4 million Italians had come to the US and represented more than 10% of the
including
foreign population.
In the story of The Godfather, Vito Corleone. He comes from Sicily at that time in that huge influx of immigration. From Sicily.
I think it's because at the time, I don't know if you know exactly why they're fleeing, but I don't think it's just the poverty. I think there's also like, because it's at the same time as unification of Italy, I think there's like social disorder, chaos.
Just because Italy becomes a full country in 1860s, I believe, they aren't just all together all at one. And bear in mind, while the American Mafia was starting around this time in the 1860s, the Italian Mafia and the Sicilian Mafia were already a thing.
Oh, yeah.
So part of the problem, and this is, I feel like I need to stress this because it's very easy to romanticize the Mafia, and as there are so many movies that do that. But the Mafia that you see in movies and the Mafia that you see in real life are vastly different. In general, corruption is a plague, and it's one of the worst. We're incredibly lucky, really, to live in a country where, although every country has some degree of corruption, in terms of the world, the UK is by far one of the best in terms of not having too much corruption. And in the countries where it's noticeable, it really does completely rip apart a country's infrastructure, its jobs, its employment, its everything, its soul. It's really, really, really bad, and it screws over a lot of innocent people. So by, if that was the 1800s where there were people struggling and wanting to leave, by 1920 where there's just no money in the south because the Mafia in the south, the Sicilian Mafia, are taking all of it in comparison to the Italian north, no wonder that there's a huge influx of people because, they've just got no money.
I don't know why I have this view that the Sicilian Mafia aren't necessarily like evil. Like I just have the feeling they're like quite like regionally proud people as well. So they might be investing back into Sicily. But I don't. That's just off the top of my head. It probably is not the case. I don't want to be on a list for this. There's no good mafia. At the end of the day, organized crime is not a good thing. No. Yes, certain mafias will give. It isn't really.
Yes, certain mafias give back to the community. But at the end of the day, the point of a mafia is so that you take from certain aspects of society for your own gain. That's literally the point of it. So yes, in theory, there are mafias that are more proud of their people, but in reality, southern Italy was completely gutted by the awful Italian mafias. Because basically, and I don't know if maybe I'm spoiling this, but the Sicilian mafia is the most famous one in Italy. But there's fucking tons. There's every region, every region in southern Italy and central. So from Rome downwards, basically. All those regions have mafia. So there's mafia in Puglia, there's mafia in Campania. There's mafia in Lazio, Napoli, and obviously Sicily, and I'm sure more that I'm forgetting as well. And the point is that it's not just Sicily. It's like all of the South were really struggling because all of these, not only if you're competing against other mafia, then you're going to take whatever you can to get above them, and that means you're taking more from the people that actually need it. So yes, some mafias like the Sicilian mafia might be more proud. We don't know if that's true or not. That's just our perception. But at the end of the day, all of it is still going to hinder the public far more than it helps.
There's actually something I was going to touch on, something in a bit of a different aspect, but I think what I wanted to dig into a little bit is like the perception that Italians, Americans, and Italian-Americans have of like Italian-American mobsters. I couldn't really find like quantitatively like how Italians felt about the mob or how Italian-American civilians felt about the mob. I saw some people online say that they evoked like a sense of national shame. Which is probably what you would imagine. But then also, like, that could just be a north-south thing, right? Where, like, northern Italians think it's a really horrible thing and southern Italians might think it's less bad than it is.
I don't think so.
What I do know is that there's obviously disdain everywhere towards the Italian-American Mafia because they are criminals at the end of the day. And obviously, you would view them as, like, damaging the PR of Italians, Italian-Americans. And, like, there was this intense amount of xenophobia and racism towards Italian immigrants that came to America in the 20th century. And apparently in 1891, there was a mass lynching of Italian-Americans in New Orleans, which Teddy Roosevelt said he thought was a good thing. And apparently also because of like the Moorish roots of Southern Italians, because they're like quite darker in complexion than like Northern Italians, they were racially profiled too in like the Deep South.
You said earlier that when you were researching, you were quite impressed at how many of the mob bosses and people below them you could just find out about, even though the fact that it's supposed to be a secretive thing. I think you have to recognize that the mafia survives because it's able to convince people, not one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons the mafia survives is that it's able to convince people that it's a good thing, or that it's able to convince people that it's a national good, there's pride to it. It's like, we're Sicilian, we're going to protect Sicilians. It's kind of like throwing a smokescreen over your eyes, and so many other things in politics that aren't, how we talked about literally in the last episode about the Nazis, we talked about how they are essentially a mob. It's essentially a gangster state where they are using violence and intimidation to get what they want. It's kind of the same thing with almost any mafia. I think anyone that's either educated or has seen it firsthand in Italy or America truly knows that in reality the mafia is not a good thing. And obviously we're way too small to ever have an impact. But when I say stuff like that, that makes me think internally, okay, maybe I shouldn't be saying this much, because it's like part of what makes a mafia so strong is its image. And that's
I don't think you'd be the first sociologist waiting to say the mafia are bad.
No, I know. I'm just saying it makes me feel a bit grimy to say it because it's like, we're
going to get whacked.
I don't want to step into that field.
And you might often go to southern Italy as well, so you might come right
I
into
haven't.
their path.
Furthest south I've been to so far is Rome.
Oh, don't go any more south than that.
If I go
you're going to bump into all the mafias.
I want to go to Napoli. I want to go to Naples, man. Naples seems so chill, and like Umbria and Sicily, of course. Me and B talked about
great sports brand.
Me and B talked about going to Sicily. So I adore the country. I adore Italy. But in answer to you saying I don't know how Italians feel about it, I would guess, and this is a complete guess, but I would guess that Italians in general, at least the ones that understand it, know that it is not like the movies. And in reality, the mafia is, I don't know if they could think of it as a stain, like you said there, but I do think they consider it as a bad thing for the country.
Cool. Good chat. Let's move on a little bit, because we actually need to talk about them. It is nice having the conceptual conversation, though. I do think it's important, not that we're historians or sociologists, but to give our thoughts on why we think that the opinion aspect of it, rather than just the fact and the historical breakdown.
Well, we can give our opinions once we've started stating facts and stuff. And let's be real, we've done like over 30 episodes. The people that are listening to us know that we're two complete idiots that occasionally say something that's slightly interesting.
Profound.
Like the majority of the time and stuff we talk about, we're like, oh no, it must be this, it must be this. The amount of times when I'm editing,
completely wrong.
The amount of times I'm editing in the podcast and we say something like, oh fuck, I gotta edit that out. We've completely got that wrong.
Yeah, let's keep it completely fact driven from now on. Let's have no social commentary. It's just actually I see the next thing on my paper is social commentary.
Oh, here we go. I love social commentary.
So all these immigrants come to America from Italy. They get taken to Ellis Island, which is where they get off the docks, and they have. It's portrayed a little bit in Godfather Part 2, where Don Corleone comes to America and you see this little boy, after the tragedy. No spoilers. And he comes to American soil. They check his physical and mental health and do literacy tests. And then they gradually move into New York and it starts changing. And there's merchants and vendors and residents starting to integrate. So from these small impoverished neighborhoods in NYC and around America, gangs start to pop up. Do you know anything about the 5 Points gang?
5 points?
The 5 Points gang.
No, I don't.
Well, I think they're a New York City gang. And I think it originates from literally there being a junction of 5 points. And I think in the films Gangs of New York with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Is that not a mafia movie? Or is that just a gangster movie?
Yeah, I guess it's a gangster.
Very
gangster
interchangeable.
Mafia. I don't think it's very good. I think it's a terrible, terrible film.
I've seen it, but
it got nominated for Academy Awards.
I don't remember.
It's shocking. Shocking.
Really?
The acting's good. Like Daniel Day-Lewis is very good.
Oh.
Young Leo's very good. You get like Liam Neeson and Brendan Gleeson.
I have seen this.
What's her name? Cameron Diaz, but not great. So the 5 Points gang were a street gang that primarily consisted of Irish Americans, founded by a man called Paul Kelly. Sounds Irish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Kelly was born Francesco Paolo Antonio Vaccarelli.
Okay.
So he's considered to be the father of American organised crime. Obviously changed his name to Paul Kelly to sound more Irish to fit in with the 5 Points gang. And he started by purchasing some brothels, started getting this criminal enterprise set up, and then started recruiting immigrants off the street. What was an Irish gang at the time, it came to be dominated by Italian immigrants and with a few members of the Jewish persuasion too.
You're coming in. He's coming in.
My boys.
There we go.
They would help corrupt politicians. They would help politicians already corrupted. They wouldn't help corrupt the politicians, but they would corrupt the politicians too, I'm sure. And they'd engage in all manners of criminal activity, ranging from racketeering. Do you know what racketeering is?
No, you said this earlier, and I was thinking, wait, what is racketeering?
Racketeering is just the practice of making money through illegal means like extortion, fraud, and bribery.
Okay,
so you're setting up a racket.
Laundering.
Yeah, it's essentially laundering because, like, in rackets, you're doing it. You're basically taking everything of value from the company through the racket. So, like, I don't know if you haven't watched Sopranos, but like there is an episode where he takes over a shop of someone, forces that person to buy like dodgy airline tickets, basically. And that is the racket. The racket is this shop is now as a front is buying dodgy airline tickets through the credit they don't have, and then they'll force bankruptcy on it. So that's essentially what racketeering is. It's just like the criminal activity with like the added mixture of it. And this forms the basis of what the criminal enterprise the mafia do later become. So it's just extortion, murder, trafficking, election fraud, bribery. Extortion is like the main element of it. Extortion is like going up to someone and being like, we'll make sure you're protected if you give us a bit of money.
Yeah, classic.
And there's no reason for them to do that, but if they don't do it, they're going to get beaten up or killed.
It's essentially blackmail without the blackmail.
Yeah, and many of the immigrants that Paul Kelly recruited to join this gang, this 5 Points gang, will later become prominent names in their own right later. You can tell me if you've heard of any of them. First is Johnny Torrio.
I recognise the name.
He was the mastermind behind the National Crime Syndicate that evolved later. Right. His protege as well, and tell me if you know this one, but Al Capone.
Yeah, classic.
Yep, Scarface. Tell me if you know these ones. Charles Lucky Luciano.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God. Have you seen Boardwalk Empire?
No, I've watched the first episode. That's Steve Buscemi's character, isn't it?
No, he's Nucky Thompson.
Oh.
Lucky Luciano was an architect of the Commission, which is like the democratic body of all the biggest bosses, all the biggest families. And if you know this guy as well, probably one of my favorite mobsters, if you can have favorite mobsters, but Meyer Lansky.
Oh, because he's
Meyer
Jewish.
Lansky, yeah.
He's Jewish, yeah. I heard that immediately. Heard like, the ski and thought, he loves him because he's Jewish.
He's a Polish Jew. But yeah, actually, I'm not planning on doing a talk about him.
But you love him.
I do like him very much, yeah.
Why is that? Why do you like this gangster?
Because his nickname is the mob's accountant. which is just
hell.
It's so anti-Semitic. It's so funny.
Oh, of course. 5 big names in the mobster business, and of course it's the Jew.
The mob's
accountant. Oh, no.
They were like Lucky, Bones, Joe, accountant. And because we talked about a Jewish mobster there, I think it's also good to set out who's allowed to join the mafia.
Yes.
You can join from any background, but you can only become a true member if you're of full-blooded Italian origin. That later becomes half-blooded as like we get later into immigration. When you become a member of a family, you become made, which means you are untouchable. Yeah. He's a made guy. You can't get got. Yeah. But I guess if you've seen Goodfellas, spoiler alert, you know that even made guys can get whacked.
Well, yeah, and in real life, I obviously we don't always take it back to movies, but like, that is, not every made guy in Italian history was not got. Your chances of getting killed were much lower, but there was still violence. That's kind of the point. I think
it's more like your general treatment. Probably it's probably the general conduct towards you, because like if you're made, You inspire a bit of fear. People respect you a bit more.
Yeah.
You can't get pushed around by like other people.
It's a pretty big promotion.
Yeah, it's a huge promotion. Like socially speaking, you're now like one of them. You know, you're a brother basically because it's this family structure. And it's not that they're all related, but some of them are. But you know, rarely is that a family actually a family. It's just a name for the system of governance, which is the family structure. So there are 5 major families, and they all go about with this hierarchy. So the hierarchy is at the top you have the
Godfather.
Well, the boss, or the
Capo.
Don. No, not Capo. Don
do you mean not
or
Capo?
Don or Godfather, sometimes called. Think Tony Soprano in New Jersey. You know, I'll just say it myself. you just.
I've said 2
just shut
names
the
there.
fuck
They
up
both
and sit
work. Godfather, you know, Godfather's
You'll
obviously
see in a second. why-
Patrino. There you go. That's a third one for you.
You'll see in a second why you're wrong. Usually the boss becomes the boss through succession. There's also situations where like bad blokes usurp the throne. So in some situations, the boss invokes the most fear or is just the most shrewd and ruthless. For example, Albert Anastasia. He was a hitman and co-founder of Murder Inc. Do you know they are?
Murder Inc.
Murder
Sounds like
Inc.
Monsters Inc.
Doesn't it? Yeah, nicknames like the One-Man Army and the Lord High Executioner. And he eventually became the boss of the Gambino crime family that controlled New York when he killed the boss, Vincent Mangiano.
Those are great names. I'll say this now.
Vincent Mangiano.
In Italians, like, you know, you can give him banter, you give him shit. Zach often gives shit to my lovely lady.
What do I say? What shit do I give her?
Oh, you're just always just meh meh meh. But we love it because it's obviously not a problem. We love the banter. But one thing that they've absolutely got is they've got some terrific names. Like all these little, like, you know, Gambino,
Benito Mussolini,
like Vito. I mean, what a cool name
Yeah.
Vito is, you know, just and all these like
Antonio.
yeah, it's just
Antonio's not a
it all
great name.
sounds cool.
Yeah.
It all suits the you know the suits as it were, the big nice lovely Italian suit with
Yeah,
the
you're right, you're
cigarette and stuff. It just all fits.
The little like trilby hat that like
Yeah.
tucked down a little bit. Then you have the underboss below the boss. They're second in command. They're responsible for like the day-to-day runnings of the family.
You haven't yet proven to me why my version of the name isn't.
Because I'll
right.
explain in
Yeah, I'm
literally
waiting.
a second if you just wait.
Well, you're just taking some
Fucking hell,
time.
you are on the edge of
wanna
your
know.
seat now,
I
aren't
wanna
you?
know.
Do you want to leave? Do you want to go?
No, I don't. I want to find out why Patrino or Godfather or Capo.
Yeah, okay, I'll tell you.
Why
I'll
is it
tell you,
not
I'll tell you
Capo?
why Capo. Okay,
Why
yeah, I'm
not?
gonna jump ahead. Let me first just finish this. Underboss. They become the boss if the boss.
You're already speaking a million miles a minute. Now you get
Underboss,
really quick.
underboss.
You don't make your sentences anymore. You speak so
Let me
fucking
fucking
quick.
explain, all right?
I'm listening.
Explain. One of the most famous underbosses is Agnello della Croce, who mentored John Gotti. Let's move on now and talk
Yes.
about why
yeah,
saying
please.
Capo isn't right. Because underneath, oh god, it's not the underboss yet. Underneath the underboss and the consigliere,
Is the
which I'll skip out.
underboss.
No, is the Capo.
Yeah.
Capo regime. And Capo regime, there are 4 Capo regimes to each underboss that goes into a boss. So Capo cannot be the boss because Capo is Capo.
Do you know what the Italian word for boss is?
Oh yeah, Capo e tutti di capi.
Capo.
Yeah, Capo. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So all I was saying was the Italian word for it. That's
What does this phrase mean? Capo di tutti i capi.
Capo di tutti. Boss of all is what?
I capi.
I capi. Boss of all the bosses.
Yeah, boss of all
I
bosses.
see.
It's what one of the bosses tried to call himself when he
Boss of all
became
bosses.
the boss of all bosses.
Right.
Yeah, his name is a great name, Salvatore Malanzano.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean.
That's a great
They all
name.
sound so cool.
Okay, so underneath the underboss, you have the consigliere.
Yes.
One of those famous fictional ones would be Tom Hagen.
Oh,
from
I
the
love
Godfather films.
Tom.
He serves as the right hand man. They're advisors to the family.
Yeah, he's great.
Beyond Tom Hagen, you've got classically in fiction, you have Silvio Dante from The Sopranos, and he probably has one of the best clips of any character in Sopranos. And I'm going to spoil it for you a little bit here, and I apologize for doing so.
I'll do this.
But at Chrissy's intervention, when they all go around the room and they say why they want Chrissy to be safe and support him, he goes, he just looks down at his piece of paper and goes, when I came in to open up one morning, there you were with half your head in the toilet. Your head was in the toilet water. Disgusting. It just absolutely kills me. The delivery is so great. And then Tony quickly goes, I can't verify. He was sick for a little while. So yeah, underneath the consiglieres, the underboss, you have the Capo regimes. They control a group of soldiers, about 10 to 20 people. There's 4 of them. They give a percentage of their earnings to the boss and the underboss. The soldiers underneath the Capo regimes give earnings to the capos. It all goes up. They all give like a percentage off them, but obviously sometimes they'll probably like withhold a bit and keep it for themselves, and it'll be a bit corrupt.
Of course.
There are instances where capos can be so powerful, even though they're assigned to some of the more like their responsibilities that they we put them in like the criminal eye, they can wield more enormous power and take control of families. So Antonio Corralo was a capo in the Lucchese crime family, and he had massive control of unions and teamsters who were truck drivers, and he eventually became the boss of the family after the head of the Lucchese family died. So like there is a situation where you can just go straight past the rankings.
Yeah.
And then you got soldiers, they're the made men, they're basically the ones to do like the extortion, the intimidation, the murders, the assaults, that sort of stuff. And below the soldiers, you have associates. Non-Italians are associates, and you can have Italians associates, but non-Italians can't go any further than associates.
Yeah.
The most famous one is Lansky. He was one of the forerunning members of the Jewish mob for the 1920s for around 50 years, and he was known as the mob's accountant.
50?
Like I said, 50. He was known as the mob's accountant, but really he was just like an unbelievable organizer. He was one of the brainchilds behind the National Criminal Syndicate, which we'll talk about a bit more and become clear.
So he was never a made man.
Never a made man, but like was respected by everyone and like frequently asked to mediate disputes between mobsters, and probably was unbelievably wealthy and very powerful.
Yeah.
And he had his own mob. With Bugsy Siegel, and there was a Jewish mob, but it wasn't like as entrenched and like consolidated as the American mob was, but it was still really powerful. Now let's get into the events. So, Joe, can you just remind me what happens on January 1919? Something really big in the American political landscape.
The Valentine's Day Massacre?
No, that's 10 years later.
January 1919.
It's not an event. It's maybe a policy is better describing it.
Oh, prohibition?
Prohibition! Woohoo! In January 1919, we covered this a lot in our Prohibition episode, but people probably haven't watched Prohibition episode who are watching this, or they may have done.
It was also quite a while ago now.
Prohibition was the making, transporting, or selling of alcohol being made legal, but not drinking it. Drinking it is fine, just you can't purchase it from anywhere.
Yeah.
And what happens when something is made illegal?
There becomes a huge black market.
Oh, yeah.
Basically.
That's the case, and it all goes absolutely crazy in America for those next like 10 years until it's legalized.
That was a fun episode. I really enjoyed that.
Episode,
it never did particularly well, the Prohibition episode, but it was fun to just learn about how that whole system worked. Because, you basically had cities where all the you had what are they called? The places underneath the ground? Speakeasies, where people would go and drink, and you had this huge distribution like business, but then all of like the moonshine and stuff was being made like out in the
sticks,
the boondocks, completely out in the middle of nowhere where no one would ever go, no police would ever go to check. So it was a really interesting time period.
And gangs and politicians and criminals see this as an opportunity to make a quick buck. And
this is where gangsters really step up.
I say politicians as well, but like they did. So
corruption. I guess what you say, this is where corruption in America. Really
Steve Buscemi's character Nucky Thompson in Boardwalk Empire. He's loosely based on Atlantic City Mayor Enoch Thompson, who profited massively off Prohibition while in office, like selling distribution rights and that sort of stuff. Probably also like planning permission for speakeasies and stuff like that, which the mob do immense amounts of. They're responsible for the running of so many speakeasies, because I guess you have to give protection. Like if you want a speakeasy, you need to be able to hide it from the police. And if you're mobsters, you're not scared of the police. So you can just pop them up all over the place. And we're about to end part one. But I know I always leave the fans on, I guess the listeners on it. The fans sounds like we're actually famous. I always leave you viewers, you lovely viewers, on cliffhangers when I do. And I didn't want to do that again. So before I do end for part one, I wanted to briefly introduce Al Capone.
Yeah, here we go.
Who you guys probably know about, but it'd be remiss of me to do a mafia episode and not talk about Al Capone. Or Al Capone. Al Capone?
Al Capone.
Al Capone. So Alfonso Gabriel Capone.
If you want to say it the Italian way, it's Al Capone.
Al Capone.
But Al Capone in America, which is where he's from.
He was known by the nickname Scarface, and he was the boss of the Chicago crime family for 8 years, from 1925 to 1933.
Yep.
He worked as a bouncer and became a bodyguard of Johnny Torrio, who was one of the great mobsters of the 20th century, and he made a killing in Prohibition. He made a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. Al Capone?
Al Capone. I mean, it's sure the Italian, but he's not Italian. He's grown up in America all his life.
So Al Capone, he loved attention, and he was viewed as a modern day Robin Hood, and he would love to go to baseball games, and people would cheer him from the crowd.
I remember this.
And he was essentially the most famous mobster, maybe one of the most famous people in the United States at the time.
But it's still today.
Yeah.
In terms of real mobsters, is there anyone that's name is as famous as Al Capone? I don't think so. I think Al Capone's probably the most famous.
Probably right, actually.
You should do a pointless question on, that quiz, pointless.
100
people. Like you just get like
that.
a proper big number for Al Capone and not much for the rest, I think.
My landscape probably get a few, I think. No?
There's levels to this game. Mate.
John Gotti, we get those.
Bro.
John Gotti, we get a lot.
Yeah, not Al Capone numbers.
No. And if you're very well known as a mobster, it's probably not a very good thing. So it's all going very well for Al Capone at the moment until a very, very fateful Valentine's Day.
Massacre.
In 1929. And that's where we'll stop part 1. Thank you very much for listening to part 1 of the Pint-Sized History Podcast romp through the Mafia.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about the Valentine's Day thingy that often, that much in the Prohibition episode. So now we can actually get into it a bit more.
Did we not talk about it?
No, we did. I remember talking about it, but not much. So that'll be fun to talk about that. So enjoy that in part 2. And in the meantime, have a nice week.
See you later.
Bye-bye.